How are you? How was your week?
It was good. It was crazy, but good. And you?
Yeah, it was crazy. This week was okay. Last week was crazy because I don't know if I told you that we got this meeting with professional women in
Ah,
Colombia.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
I saw
we got
on
together.
LinkedIn.
How you saw it. Yeah, we put together. It's very important. I wanted to share with you because I remember that we started that movement long time ago.
Yeah, I remember because I recently joined one in Canada. So
Oh,
it's, yeah, so I joined the team and I always say that I remember when we started that. And I don't know, maybe we were even three women, right? I think we were very
we were
few.
three. We three, and it was in automation fair that we started
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
talk about that. And I remember that you mentioned, and I was like, I don't want to have this kind of meetings with women complaining about life
Yeah,
and men. Do you remember that?
yeah, I remember. I remember. Yeah,
And how life is hard on us and how different we are.
yeah,
Remember?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it has evolved. It has evolved with time. And I'm so proud to be part of that. And also remember that we started that and how fun it was at the beginning.
Yeah, but that's interesting. So what's the best way that you like on how it has evolved for you? What?
Because it is more about really supporting each other and sharing our experiences. Last week, we were talking about vulnerability.
Okay.
And that was fantastic because this is one, as we always talk, was another buzzword, right? Show your vulnerability. And but what does it mean? It's really important, and what it means for you and how vulnerable you are. It's different for each one. So it was a week of reflection talking about vulnerability, and it makes me think about vulnerability in everywhere, in all our aspects in life. So that was really different. This is why I'm telling you that it has evolved because it's more like touching you and making you think it over.
Okay. No, I like it. As you were speaking, I was thinking because, okay, so to back up, I was actually thinking about something. One thing we didn't do last time is maybe share with the one person maybe that's listening or anyone at time or just
With us when we
ourselves.
go back.
Exactly. When we go back and listen, when you share it to your mom, my mom, that we talk just briefly who you are and why we decided to start these conversations. So I think it's a very funny way how we got back together in the business side, but we're friends. And so I don't know, what do you think? Speaking about vulnerability.
Yeah, vulnerability is to say that this is going to be for us and that we have to do something. We have very nice conversations, and it's worth to try to share our thoughts and how deep we can get into things that everybody is experiencing in the work life and in life in general. So I'm your friend. I've been meeting you. I have known you for a while. I'm just like a strong woman. Everybody thinks that I am a strong woman because I am engineer and I have done many things, changing careers to marketing, and I work for an international company, which I was the first woman and sales manager. And it puts you in a role, in a spotlight. Sometimes it's good because people wants to know you, but it's also bad, I would say, because everybody's expecting something or has an idea of why you got there or what is this that you have to do next. So this is me. But I'm a very creative person, I think. And also the conversations that we have had has shown that we think about life and what is this that we're giving to the people that is around us. And so this is why I think that we started these conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So I am Diana. And the reason why we started that I started initially was because mainly what you said, everything, just I would add that I was looking at one video once and they were saying, okay, this is a word, this is another word now, vegetable. And then they say, you probably said this one. And they were saying, because if you did, 97% of the people say the same one. And I did say that one. So what I was thinking is, and it makes me think to what you're saying about women, right? At times, it's not necessarily what you're going to talk about. It's just the fact of finding people that you feel supported, right? That you feel that environment, that probably there are aspects that you might be thinking as well, or that are coming up and that can help you in your journey. So yeah, there's no other goal than to spend a nice time and talking about our perspective and our ideas, and just with that. And we have no idea where this is going to go. I don't even know how many people watched the first one, so we appreciate the opportunity to use the channels that Pink Piano could have, or that we could be part of, and then just speak a little bit about what we're thinking. With that, we will go today to talk a little bit about culture and the part of vulnerability that you talk about. So we were speaking earlier in the week about one saying that I really liked was how people feel in their stomachs and hearts on a Sunday night about Monday morning is your culture. And we were talking about how at times and how culture is what you tolerate. And it has become, like we say, a buzzword as well. This is part of other things that it's been said, and everyone talks about it. And it's on you have a survey and you have in your walls and you have everything about it. But the reality is culture is kind of like our brand, right? It's a thing that happens that it's part of who we are. And we can be intentional on how we shape it. But in the end, if we tolerate anything different, that's going to become our culture, right? Like it's both sides. Like it's from the leaders and probably the one that created and had the vision for the company, but then how people is acting every single day in every single situation, if they are being seen or not, that's your culture. That's what you have in your DNA. Like that's how you're built. I don't know. What do you think?
I have been thinking because lately I have been through some interview process for bringing people to my team. And this is one of the questions that they ask. How is the culture of your organization? So I try to remember what is in this PowerPoint. I try to get attached to that. However, is as you said, is what you feel inside, right? It's not only what I am feeling inside, but what I see that people that work with me feel about the organization. And the difficult part here is that the culture is what is common to everyone. And it's not necessarily what is in the PowerPoint. And what is common to my team is not probably what is common to the or another part of the organization. So it's a very difficult, and also it depends on the time, right? Because sometimes the organization is going through changes or is going to economical challenges, and you will see a different behavior. So what is the difference between the culture or the core and this behavior that is a reaction of what you are facing in the moment? It is difficult. So this is why the culture has to be very strong, and it has to be something that you share, and it has to be something that has to be consistent. For me, is the key is consistency and share with everyone around you or the ones that you're working with. And as you said, this is what you feel Monday mornings and Sundays, because that's real. It's when you want to go back to your organization and how happy you are to go back and to join the people that works with you. This is the real culture, right? For me, that when you mention that, it's real, and it's not what is in the PowerPoint. And you have to share and you have to build that culture.
And how do you? So I was thinking about different things, but one is how do you share that probably with people that you're trying to attract? Or do they tell you, have you seen that, oh yeah, I think I saw on how you're posting online or how you appear or how, because when I see you, I think you're excited about your job. And that's the other thing. And I know that culture might be experienced differently by different people because we're different, right? And maybe your priorities are different than other
Exactly.
individual. It might be an amazing culture for me, but probably not for you, or the other way around, and so on. But one of the things is, I think, as excited as you are about your job, that talks a lot about the culture that you're building. Is there anything you're seeing of people like making assumptions prior coming with you about culture?
Before coming to the organization?
Yeah, like in interviews or what you're saying.
Oh yeah, well, exactly is what they see from me, and when they ask me about the culture, I will talk about the culture of my team. Is, as you say, is like it's a high energy, it's a creativity, innovation, and maybe this is not what the PowerPoint says. So they can tell if they talk to me or they talk to somebody from my team, they will see this consistency. They will say, okay, this is the culture of your organization. It's going to be consistent and it's going to be sustainable. It's going to be something that we keep as a core, but our behavior will change. But the core will stay, and this is the culture. So, yes, I think even people from other organizations within the company, they think that the culture of my team is how I act, is this energy, is this happiness, right? This fun. You have to, and this is culture. When you look alikes, right? It's like you and me, we are really alike. And this is why these conversations go on very well, and everything that we think and when we work together, it's like we were so alike. But this is not the culture of the organization, but this is what we can build around us, right? And if it doesn't go with the company, so we do not belong to this company. It's difficult, right?
But I like how you're saying, because I was thinking what are the most important aspects of culture in terms of, let's say, you and I can be alike, but if it's part of the culture, I don't know, respect or customer centricity or things, even in our different ways of being, it's part of who we are, right? I think about, I was thinking the other day about transparency, for instance, with Google and the layoffs and everything. One of the things that I thought it was very interesting, and they shared everything is shared now, so be careful what you say. So they were saying that the CEO or something was saying, I think they gave a very good severance package, and then they were saying like, okay, you are gonna do this and you're gonna get this, but the reality is we have to let you go because why we hire you, the environment and the market environment was entirely different than what we have right now, and we need to change. So it was more of people was at home. I think they invested a lot in home devices and things like that. Now with AI and all this very interesting stuff happening with Microsoft and ChatGPT and so on. So now they change, but they're like, what do you do with that? There's nothing really to do. There's no ask. It just is what it is, but I'm transparent and I'm going to let you know versus, I don't know. So I think it's part of the organization that of the culture, I guess, that you could have. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that when you define the organization, culture has to be something very general. It's very broad, and that allows you to build on top of that and being consistent and leverage what is there. So for me, the culture has to be something like, as you said, transparency, trust. It's a trust. It's a very strong statement. And if you talk about a culture of trust, it will allow you to do many things around trust and keep identified with this culture. So it has to be something strong that this your core value that you can attach to this core value of the company. And this is why when you go like a very general, this is a culture of, I don't know, do you have any example of a culture of what?
I think this is I don't know, this is a good, not
The
judging,
question.
but not just in all transparency and a candid conversation between friends, but the diversity and inclusion. I know we talk about this a lot, right? And how there was a time that when I came back to work at a company, and a multinational company, and I had an article, and they say for people to, and this is what I think, and I know you and I talk about this even 15 years ago or something, that if they think that you get something because you have these tags, I always tend to think about them as tags, right? You know how we have tags, and there's a customer, and there's a lead, and this is a so that's how this is a woman, and she's also Latin, and she's also this, and so you start getting these tags, and that ends up being good.
Yeah,
it's as like for me, it's as bad for you to think that I got something because of those tags than if I am not giving an opportunity because of who I am. It's as bad as that. And that's like those numbers, but we need to have another woman. And why? Now, I do agree with the bias, of course, like what you and I are saying, right? We're very alike in so many things, and we are so very different in others.
yeah.
But we can get biased, of course. There's this cognitive bias that basically means that if you're two alike, and then you can only see that. So yeah, that diversity is good, but diversity, it's more than a gender or.
Yeah, this is something that we have been talking about. And again, with this culture of inclusion and diversity, that's fine, but it has to be a core behind this. It's a culture of respect. Because when you respect, you're not going to use that diversity and inclusion as a check mark to move on, or as a task, as you said. You are talking about respect, and you're respecting yourself, and you're respecting your co-worker, and you're respecting being honest, right? So if you do something, it's not to achieve a number or a quota, it's because you respect others. So maybe inclusion is one thing, but the culture has to be trust, respect, honesty. I don't know. That's for me. Otherwise, if you put this is a culture of inclusion, if it's not that strong, and if you bring people that is not that aligned with that, it could be something else but a culture. That's what I think.
No, I agree. I think I never really thought about it that specific way, because specifically like that's so true, like the respect. Because diversity and inclusion, and basically we need to bring different people, versus what you're saying. No, we're gonna challenge ourselves, and we need to see different points of views for sure. But like you're saying, you need to respect, and you don't need to respect just because they're part of a minority group.
Exactly.
You need to respect everyone.
Exactly.
And you need to be yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that I have seen it. It's like a long time ago, like when everything was black and white in my life, the world is okay. So you are there because you're a woman, and they need to have a woman. It's not because I was worthy to deserve things. No, you have another role because they need a woman in the management level. Yeah, but it happened to be that I was that woman, right? Among many one. So it's very hard to be the first in this, to be honest, because this is something I always say when I was at the university and I got good grades. I was we were two women and everything else men, right? And if you got good grades, they came your The students came to you and said, "Oh, you got a good grade because you're a woman." And the teacher was very nice to you. So this is why you got the good grades. And that was normal. But if you got bad grades, they came back to you and said, you got bad grades because you are a woman. You shouldn't be here studying engineering. You should go and study something else. So we got used to that. And it was fun by that time. But when you come and you think about that, it's that was hard, right? That was not okay. That was not fine. And you don't have to accept that. You don't have to accept like anything that you win or that you have and you do is because you are a woman or you are not a woman or because you are, I don't know, a black person or if you are whatever. It's because what you do is what brings you here, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. And about vulnerability, so how do you see that connecting to culture and
culture? Yeah, it's vulnerability, and this is something that when you show what you are, right, and what you think and what you are afraid of, this is the vulnerability, and it depends on the culture that you are developing that you can let this out. So there are some cultures that allow you to fail, for instance. Some that is not allowed for you to even think about doing something that is not perfect. So if you don't have the culture to support you, you cannot be vulnerable. And if you are not vulnerable, maybe you are showing something always that you are not. So it's difficult sometimes. And last week I was telling you that we were talking about vulnerability, all these women, and we all had things inside that we never wanted to show because we're strong, we are professional, association, and then suddenly, we got really vulnerable, and because we were talking about these deep feelings inside and how this is impacting us. That was like a lot of crying around the conversations. I was crying by myself, something that nobody thought because I'm very strong. And I was in this panel, in this discussion I wanted to share with you because we were talking about how you can advise other people about your career and whatever. So we were in Colombia where long time ago we had very nice experiences. We were in this room where I don't know if you remember where we had this training called Evolution that was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And we learned a lot and we grew and we learned about culture and everything. So we were there and some people that took that course with us were there too. And it was the first time that we got together after the pandemic. And it was a lot of emotion, right? A lot of emotion. We were remembering the good times that we were there, that we had there, how we grew, and how that moment helped us to get where we are now. So it was a lot of emotion. And I was in that room talking about my career and the good people that I met during the way that supported me. I started to cry, Diana. And there was this vulnerability because I was there, sitting there, telling my experience as a strong woman and like the resilience that I have and how we can be successful. And I couldn't even say 2 words when I started to cry. And that was really nice also because some people, men that were in that training with us, they saw that and they started to cry also because it was very moving, very emotional. So this is the vulnerability that helps because many women there say it's okay to be vulnerable. It's not like another training. It's not another check mark. I have to be vulnerable. It's like we show in a very transparent way that we are vulnerable and that this is okay. And the culture, this is where the culture comes. The culture allows you to have those moments. So that was really good. That was really inspiring, and it was very nice that you could share that kind of experiences with people at work, because you can do that at home with your family or your friends, but at work, I think it's fantastic, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think you can't really work without being yourself now. I don't think we ever could, but I think in the past it was more expected that no one needs to know your life and things like that. And I agree. There are things that it doesn't really matter, but it does create a different relationship when you share things. It makes you closer and you work harder for people that you're close to, I think, for sure. It's kind of, you know what they say? What was the story? I can't remember even the context of it, but they were saying that when, I don't know what happened, this is going to be a terrible story because I don't remember anything, but when something happened, you wanted to try to create that connection so that you would be rescued. It was kind of like these things that you could be in a dangerous situation. And what was this? I can't remember what it was, but it was like, I can't remember if it's animals or if it's humans or I don't know. But anyways, the thing is that they try to make it that you remember me, that I make that connection with you, so that if something happens, because you have that connection with me, you will rescue me. Like you will feel like this is mine, I need to protect, versus if you're not. So with culture, it's like that. Let's give a very specific example. In all honesty, in a big company, medium size to larger size company, for your career advancement, you are mainly represented by others, right? It's not that there's no test. There's no test that you get. There's really nothing like that. You get represented by other people. So there are meetings that happen that you're not part of, or there are conversations that, oh, I need this profile. Oh, this person is great or not. So you're represented by others. And if you cannot make that connection, other people might not be representing appropriately, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about those meetings and those cultures and the vulnerability, but also depends on who is the leader at that time. This is another thing. It's like
True.
You have to be yourself, and the culture has to allow you to be yourself, right? Because the culture is what stays, and whoever is going to be the lead is going to be the same culture. And this is why this is really important, because it's not like you have this culture and this is what defines your organization, and you have this leader and this leader moves out and you have another leader. It has to be the same. If the culture is strong, if the culture is healthy, it has to be the same. It doesn't depend. It shouldn't depend on a leader. And it's very difficult to get that situation. And as you say, in a meeting, when you don't feel comfortable, depending on the leader, that doesn't allow you to be vulnerable. Again, it's sad, right?
Yeah. So for me, I think there are two things important. One, at times I don't think the time needed to be dedicated to culture is like not in an appropriate, intentional,
exactly,
strategic and real way. By the way, I know it's too much, but I think all of it is needed. Like you need the intention to work on it. You need the strategy, like very conscious defining what you're going to do, to be vulnerable as an organization and as leaders, that you are probably doing it wrong. I would even start with this premise: I am doing it wrong. How can I improve? And then allow my leaders that it's not defining. There is this one thing that I love that says you're not the last good thing you did, and you're also not the last bad thing you did. So if you win, don't stay too much glowing on your wins. But if you lose, don't defeat yourself too much either. You're not either of those, right? So you keep on going. So as leaders, I think that's the other part. If you're not, if your culture or if your people, let's say, or let's talk about engagement, right? If you measure culture in employee engagement and the metric says you're not being good at that, how can we open our eyes and say, okay, what's wrong? Is it something that you're not doing? And maybe, like, how many times there are leaders that are promoted that they were not ready or prepared or made successful to be leaders. And then you might end up burning a career of someone that was probably had a lot of potential because they never had. I remember when I was a leader, I was a terrible leader. I was terrible, like terrible.
Talking about vulnerability, right?
Yeah, no, even what I thought was good was so wrong. And again, to my understanding now, maybe in 5 years, I'm going to say, oh, I was terrible, what I defined today as a good leader. And I think that part of a mindset that you will continue to grow and continue to be able to see what you need to improve, right? But I think in the end, the time that it's dedicated to that, to that intentional, to that allowing, because we underestimate the importance of culture. For me, culture is how you do everything that it's needed for a company's success. How you do it, and then ultimately what you do it, why you do it. And so why are you going to help your customers and with what? That's part of the culture. Because if my culture is to have a really deep, profound care for my customers and for their success, is different than if my culture is maximum profitability. It's going to be different. So, yeah, tell me.
No, it's because now I'm confused because like is that you build the culture or the culture attract people alike. So how do you do with the chicken and the egg, right? Yeah. Do you think that you're going to change people to adapt to the company culture, or you have the culture and people that feels identified with this culture will join the company, and those that are not identified should leave the company? It's difficult, or you have to preach your culture and make people to convert to your culture. It is difficult because I have seen those culture workshops and everybody has to go there and this is our culture and this is how we do things, but they never got to tell you. And if you don't like your if you don't feel identified and if you don't feel that you can change, they can invite you to leave the company. They don't do that. So what is this that they're expecting with us? Cultural workshops, as culture workshops, it's like for you to become to that culture, or is this that they are expecting? Is my question for you. What do you think?
I don't know. I really don't know. What I think, though, is that's what I think, that the time dedicated into really defining what the culture is, it's not enough, and what you want it to be, and then what does it mean? Because this is how I think, okay? And there's one thing that I think it's important, and many people probably don't think about it this way, but in one of the certifications that I did about leadership, the CEO of Chipotle was saying that the people, like, they had like their objective and like what they wanted to become, what the culture that they wanted was based on the fact that they wanted fast food healthier. That was their passion. That was their purpose, let's say. And that, for me, I agree. It needs to be simple. It needs to be super passionate to the top leadership and so on.
Yeah.
But then what he was saying is that when they bring that into the stores, people didn't care about that. They were so driven about the obesity levels and things like that, that the people that was really doing the food and cleaning was like, okay, whatever. I don't know. I don't have enough to think about that. So what they did is, okay, they're not going to care about that. What can they care about? What can they care about? That if they are motivated, it doesn't really matter. It's going to take us to the same place, because I think that's important. I think the purpose is where that is going to take us. The thing for me is that culture is what actually going to allows you to get there. You want where you want that to take you, but if you don't have energy or whatever combustible to make it walk, if you're not creating products, if you're not delivering, if you don't have innovation, if you don't market, if you don't sell, all of those things, if you don't have those, you're never going to get there. And that is the culture, I think, for me, that's what I mean. And that culture, I think it's both-sided. It comes from the top leader and cascades down, but then is the people, because the culture is not something that you do once in a survey. The culture is something you live every single day. It's how you behave in every single meeting. It's the words that you use in every single email that you send. Like we're saying, is how people feel on Monday. And how people feel on Monday has nothing to do with the CEO. Probably it has to do with the people that they're going to meet first thing on Monday or throughout the week, or that they know that they have emails from. And culture in the end becomes what you tolerate. This is from a training and I love this and I talk about it a lot, that it's extreme ownership, right? So from that's what they say. Culture is what you tolerate. So I think that's why it's two-sided. Because, and I guess to your point, I think it's both ways. If I was a leader, the culture, I would say that there are key roles that absolutely, if they don't align to the culture, it doesn't mean that I'm close-minded and I am perfect and I did everything. But since it was very thoughtful to where I want to get and to the best of my understanding, the best way to get there, so that's the culture piece, then there are pieces in the organization that basically is the leadership. Either they connect and adapt, or they have to go. Because if they don't go, they won't be able to replicate this. Now, for that, I need to be honest and understand if there's anything if I am doing everything to set them up for success. Is there anything that I need to do to allow them to be successful? Because if not, then I hire wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting topic.
It is. I was just thinking about this case of Mary Kay. Mary Kay, the cosmetic company, and they have a very strong culture. It's so girly. I would say that the culture was around being girly, feminine, and a woman. That they drove like a pink cars. They dressed on pink. They had the makeup and they have this call toward their leaders, but that was very consistent. And that consistency created that. Maybe it wasn't the right culture, but it was a strong culture because women wanted to join that company just to have that. It's like to be perfect, be girl, be pinky, and that was so defined, so easy. And you could have asked everyone that were there, and they were consistent on what they were saying, and they were so happy to join that. And they had companies in China, and they wanted to be exactly the same way they were in North America. It was a very strong culture, and that was because of the American. So this is an example that for me is amazing because it was consistent. Everybody was talking about the same thing. They wanted to be that way, and they wanted to join that company because the culture was like worldwide known, and it was only one. It was good, maybe not, but it was strong. So this is another thing. Maybe the culture is not that, but should be, but that connection has to be present. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like many things about culture, but it's what you say. It's both sides, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like it's egg and the chicken. It could be a virtuous cycle or a virtuous cycle, right? It's either way that it could go. But I think the more important for me is like when you tolerate, because the way this is something that I think, because the culture is not necessarily not the culture, but in general, one of the things that I try to think, it's not necessarily what you do, it's who you are, right? Because if who you are, and I think that's when it becomes an even culture, that it does come from the word cult. So it is part of what you believe so in your core that it's who you are. And if you are not that, you cannot do, because we're not, right? For instance, this company that we really love, right? That it's ethics, and it was a strong part of our culture, and it's a strong part of who we are. And we would never do a unethical thing. We know what would happen. It was no tolerate that. It didn't matter who you were.
Exactly.
There was anything that became that was a culture, because it's not. But then it turns into then that's not what you are. So you can never do something that you are not, right? Fish will not be able to run a marathon like a cheetah. It can't. It cannot even breathe outside the water. So it won't. So that is like how I think about it.
Yeah. So for me, it's like a takeaway of this conversation is, you have to see where you are, right? You have to think about the real culture of wherever you are working with, and go inside and say, is this what I am? Is this what I can connect with this organization? Is this aligned to my values? And this is a very important part when you decide what is next in your career, or where you should go, or if you should stay in an organization, right? Is this aligned to my culture, my core? And this is where you have to look inside, and whenever you are going to make these kind of decisions, right? I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think also if people that have smaller companies or startups or entrepreneurs that are starting, that is the importance of the culture, because it's really gonna define how people, even if it's 1 or 10 or 500, how they are gonna work. And the other thing as well, I do think culture can transform. There is a part that you need to be like, I think that you need to be more like, how do we say? I do think if, specifically for people with businesses, small, medium, I think we need to better the world. Like there's a part that if you are going to create this, then you have a commitment, because I think that way for leaders and so on, right? That you have a commitment to better the people that are part of that community. But I do think that the culture might change. Like going back to the Google thing, what you need when you're a very small company, that you need to be very fast and very agile. You don't need it doesn't matter how, you just need to start getting money so that you can continue adding value. It's going to be different maybe that when you're more established, and it's okay to change, by the way. I don't know if the culture that goes into the values or things like that. And I do think that they had to be some non-negotiable values, that it doesn't matter what happens, you're going to be that way. And I think they help also in decision making. But I think that could be part of another conversation. But this was very interesting. I really enjoyed it. So anything else you want to?
Me too. And I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking, okay, is this the right culture? Is it uncovering or transforming? No? Because it's something that maybe is there. And when you say, okay, identify with this culture, there are some things that I can change. Maybe you are not changing, just uncovering something that was there. And the culture allow you to discover, right? That's
Yeah, for sure.
that's what I'm taking away from this. Thank you, Diana. So next week, let's see what else we can continue talking about culture and organizations, which is a very deep concept, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Ali. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bueno.